Hello and good evening. You're watching Apostate Coalition, a news, education, information, and entertainment collaboration channel. I'm Ryan, and on tonight's Worldly Perspective, our studious conductor of tonight's show, Dr. Time Waster, is going to walk us through the Jehovah's Witness blood doctrine through a doctor's perspective. I love it. Thanks, Dr. Time Waster.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, Dr. Time Waster here. My background is a PharmD, so it is medication related specifically, but I do feel like I have at least some authority to talk on the topic of what is blood.
Absolutely.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming back. This is, I'm assuming it's 3 of a 3 video series, so we'll probably polish this off here at the end of this video. But we have been talking about blood. What is blood? Scientifically, what is blood? In the medical field, what do we do with blood transfusions? There's so much more to learn than what we went over. So I think this is just a starting point, right? This is just basic launching point for everyone else to, if you hear something, if it sounds weird, if it doesn't sound right. I mean, I could be wrong. So double check me, right?
Right.
So take this as just a launching point for you to kind of look into this more yourself. So that's really what I want to do. We want to stimulate conversation, but ultimately we want to provide a conversation about those who are in and around and interact with and used to be Jehovah's Witness, specifically regarding the no blood transfusion doctrine that they have. So today, this last section, the first 2 sections were, again, like more about the science part. So today we're going to get more into what do Jehovah's Witnesses believe. And we have many experts here with us today. We have Brother Tyler Rickshaw, who is giving us the outside perspective looking in, which we greatly appreciate. Are you still thinking you might get baptized or?
Yeah, come on. It's about time you get dunked.
Are you on mute?
Oh.
Talking, I'm on mute. I said I already went. I already did it.
Already did it.
You got dunked? We missed it?
I got too eager. Jehovah was
You dunked yourself? I make sure your pinky toes all the way under, or it doesn't count.
Yeah, you don't have to go back under because something popped up.
I did a shower baptism.
A shower baptism. Never heard of such things.
It's close enough. Holy water's fine.
Hello.
We have more guests. Welcome. So we're going through the introductions. Why don't we just start with our newest member of the group, our expert panel, Ex-Witness Awake. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jonathan, aka Ex-Witness Awake. I wanted to participate and bring something valuable, so I stopped at the local blood bank.
Ooh.
So we can have it's a control for our little experiment here.
Usually they give you cookies when you leave those things. Not.
I left the cookies.
He pulled a Creed Bratton and just took the blood bags.
This is making sense. Are you not a night shifter? Are you a vampire?
Yeah, you know. At Halloween time at the local dollar store, I'm like, oh yes, I have to buy this candy. I will use this as a prop at some point. Yeah, this is just like liquid diabetes right here.
This is their
Corn syrup.
worst nightmare come to light right here, right? Like eating of blood. You're literally just sucking that right down from the transfusion bag.
You're asking for the demons.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining and helping us with our perspective. Next, we have Ron Pomo. I introduced you wrong last time. It's habits. I just remember you.
It's okay. I have Mitch in my name. I have Ron Pomo, and then I comment as Ron Pimo, so I just get it all covered.
Can we just call you whatever?
Mystery man.
Yeah, you can call me whatever. But yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. And
Ready
what is your expertise on this panel?
I was born and raised a Jehovah's Witness, and am no longer one. So there we go.
Welcome to the world.
That's pretty much what all our expertise is.
Yeah. That about wraps me up.
Right, that's right. So, Ron and Ryan. This is gonna get
Close.
Just skip over me. Okay.
Just add I
I
in there.
started with you. What are you talking about?
I've never said anything.
Your mic was muted.
Tyler, were you, I wasn't there for that
That's where I
part. But
heard
were
you
you like,
say something.
That's what he said.
All right, we'll come back best for last. Tyler, continue. No, we are really grateful that you've been hanging out with us. We do appreciate your perspective. Why have you stuck around us weirdos for so long? What is
No,
it?
I don't have much going on in life, so
You ain't got nothing better to do.
I don't do my week. I'm home nearly 99% of the time, so I mean, yeah, it's the only interaction I get with people.
Tyler was drawn in by these Bible truths.
And here I thought that you were sincere and you truly wanted to become one of Jehovah's people. I feel so fooled. Ugh.
So are you a progressive Bible study or a regressive Bible study?
I don't know y'all JW tongue. I don't speak the JW.
Who knew that we spoke in tongues?
Y'all speaking some
We
reading
do.
books.
It's,
I can
it's
tell.
evident we have
We
our
do
own
like to invent our own
vernacular.
terminology.
Mm.
Yes. Well, ugh. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought with that. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say before we, Tyler?
No.
Okay. Ryan. Ryan, you are so wonderful. You have been hosting this show for us, and I just want to thank you for doing that, making a lot of every link. You've been helping us keep on task in many ways, so I appreciate that. Do you have anything you'd like to say about your perspective on this topic or your expertise on the matter?
Well, my story is very similar, like you said, to the rest of us. I spent most of my life as a Jehovah's Witness. Woke up a few years ago, started making content to kind of connect with people, share my story, and also to learn and share my journey as such, kind of vlog it in a way. And boy, oh boy, how your viewpoint changes in a few short years. I went from going under the knife, well prepared not to take blood, and now here I am years later going, oh my God, lady, you're crazy. You could have died. Like, what is wrong with you? All for those freaking weirdos who would just want to make arbitrary rules just to be different? My God. Yeah, so that's my viewpoint. Like, please, everybody pay attention, alert, do the research. Don't just take advice about your health care from ministers who likely their training is to maybe janitorial services as such or something. Nothing wrong with that, hey, but I don't want my health care provided to me by that person.
He's got a blood bag, though.
How
can you not listen to his advice?
I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to point out, you make a really good point, and I'm just going to use a terminology from the medical field here, where we talk about scope of practice a lot, right? And so we're all there to make sure it's not like there to like punish you. It's just there so that everyone stays in their lane, because everybody is important in making sure all of healthcare is functioning, right? We all have a different perspective. Your nurse has a different perspective. The doctor has a different perspective. Everybody who is working with you and is learning about your disease state and trying to help you in the healthcare has their lane, right? They overlap a little in different areas, but you want that, right? Because you want someone to double check each other, right? You want the dietitian to double check kind of like their perspective of it from what the doctor told you to eat for your diabetes, right? Like that's why we do that. So if you throw all of that out the window and go get all of your medical advice from your pastor or your priest or your elder, I mean, you're missing out on a whole lot of people who've spent a whole lot of dedication and time to do this, to function as a team just for your healthcare. So just want to throw that out there. Brother Rickshaw, you have a question?
I get all my healthcare advice from strangers on the internet.
You just TikTok, whoever has the prettier face or the swing.
May I diagnose you?
You know, I'm full of prebiotics.
Tales from the ER.
That's right. That's right.
Make sure my gut health is good.
Well, gut health is important. When something's important, people are willing to sell you anything. Is all I'm saying.
There's a market for that.
Right.
There's a cure for that.
And honestly, this goes back to some of the critical thinking skills that we all need to kind of relearn, if we ever learned much, right? And part of that is just going, so how do I know to trust this person versus this person? And if you just say, everything I know is probably wrong, and you start over, how do you rebuild on that? And you just start by not trusting anybody. And then and then learn, right? And so if you go to your elder and say, well, why would I use this treatment over this treatment? And they don't know the answer. You go to your doctor and you question, why are you saying this one over this one? If they treat you the same way as your priest, they're a shitty doctor. Don't go to them. But, usually that's not the case. Usually when your doctor is giving you advice, they're more than happy to explain it to you, or they should be. Again, this is definitely a shift in culture, medical wise. Talk to your pharmacist. They love sharing knowledge. Look at me talking about stuff that's not even drug related. You should talk to me about drug stuff. I love it. It's fascinating. You'll regret it. But sharing, people who are in their scope of practice who want to share their knowledge. They want to help you understand it. It's like, for example, when it comes to blood products, part of the reason why I wanted to do this is because I want to help people make the decisions that are best for them. And if they say, I want to follow this strictly, then these are your options. I just want to be able to give you your options. Sometimes they're shitty options, right? When you've narrowed your path so narrow, you have no options, you have less options. But that's my job, not to judge you for what you want to do, but help you see the logic of what your options really are. It sucks. Maybe we can talk about why you have so few options if you don't want to take any blood products, right? And so then we can go down that and we can learn it together. But you can't ask your elder this level of questions, probably without them thinking that you are going to do something that they don't want you to do, right? You're going to take blood anyway, and you're trying to justify it.
Suspicious.
Right. And that's...
Why are you asking so many questions? This is what the Bible says.
Yeah. Anyway, most of us are obviously around Jehovah's Witnesses. Thank you, Tyler, for being our...
Well, not anymore.
Well, and in some way, how many of us still have family members, right? Like, how many of us...
I've never been around y'all enough.
You have now.
It's like, oh.
Tyler, you buy the pizza, we'll all come over.
That's how y'all get. That's how y'all get us. Y'all faking. As soon as y'all come over for pizza, y'all come with the little pamphlets.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go ahead and just get started. I was planning on just kind of starting back where we left off, where in the slides of myths and myths about blood. So I figured we could kind of touch about that a little bit. Touch a little here, a little there. Not too much.
I never knew Dan D was two cats.
What's that?
I never knew Dan D was actually two cats.
Dante.
Yeah, he's just
operating the computer.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Just two laser-eyed cats.
Don't mind me.
I have two cats. So we had talked about some myths. I figure we could just start here. The next slide is what does the Bible say about blood? And this is where y'all have to be my experts because I didn't read it. And then we're going to talk about what Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, here, I'll just scroll it. You know, what do JW leaders recommend their followers do and don't do? So we'll kind of touch into it. But first, let's just go back to the myths here. Did anybody want to add to anything before we get started on this slide? Because I know I only just threw a couple things in here, but does anybody want to share a myth that they've heard about blood, or should I just finish the slide?
I really didn't know there were that many myths. I hadn't really thought about it.
Us in the real world, we didn't really do all this.
You didn't care about myths.
Right.
Yeah.
You just take the advice of your healthcare professional.
Yeah, just go on. Oh yeah, doctor.
Well, last time we had talked about how one myth I had heard, this is from a Jehovah's Witness mouth, was that one of the reasons to not take a blood transfusion was that it was infusing dead tissue into your body, which is not true. It is not dead tissue. It is tissue technically. The blood is defined as a tissue, so that part's right. But it's not dead, or it wouldn't work, right? And you would have such a massive, inflammatory reaction. Your body would just react to that because it reacts to your own dead tissue in your body with inflammation, right? With breaking it down and trying to get it out. It wants to keep it nice. So it's not true. It is not dead tissue. It still functions as it should. But it does have a shelf life, right? You can't, because it's living tissue, you can only keep it around for so long, and then you need new donations. So that is why you're always hearing about getting, blood, donating blood, because we need it if we're going to continue to be able to offer blood transfusions to people. So, the next one I had on the list is that transfusions are the same thing as ingesting blood. So,
you know what? Now that I think of it, I think I kind of have a myth.
Okay.
I just thought of it. It didn't really occur to me, but I remember hearing the Jehovah's Witnesses say that, like, when the people behind the scenes doing like the paperwork and stuff get things wrong all the time, and that's how there's accidental like cross contamination, like they give you the wrong blood type or something like that, they misread that. And now that I think about that, I used to be the person who had to go get the blood from the laboratory and bring it back to the OR. And so I saw the paperwork and how, like, we'd have to read the number off and somebody would have to read it back, and we'd have to we'd have to write it a few different times, and each time from the bag, just to make sure that everything, there were so many steps that we took, is what I'm saying, is that at least if they were doing it the right way, that would not be happening as often as they say it does.
Right. They scare you a little bit that it's happening all the time.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of like taking your car for an oil change. You're like, dang it, I put that transmission fluid in the motor again.
Like, oh my Lord. Oh goodness.
Yeah, but they definitely amp up the risks when in any of their propaganda about blood transfusions, or it used to be yearly parts that they would do about filling out your blood cards. It would always be filled with the scary stuff, like full of diseases, you can get the wrong blood, all of that stuff. Yep.
Like, oh, I'd rather die than have to, get a disease to be saved.
Oh. Poor people.
So it's funny then that you did this. Did you feel insulted at all that they were saying that you're not capable of doing your job correctly, since it was literally what you did for a living? Or
it really hadn't. I mean, I guess it kind of hit me then, but I wasn't really awake at the time when I was doing the job. So I was just like, oh boy, there's a lot more thought that goes into this than I had realized. They kind of made it more just like this. Somebody's running into a room. I need a blood bag. Somebody's like, I hope that's the right one.
Fine.
Good to ask.
And I did this in an emergency situation when somebody passed away and they were hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
And it was just, and still it did not, there was no like skipping any steps. That did not matter. It was still, that was still so utterly important.
What would you do if blood spilled on you?
You wash it off, and if you had any open cuts, you might want to make a
finders keepers.
So I'm talking about in terms of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh.
They say you can't spill blood on you.
Well, yeah, like medical injuries or something. You treat it like anybody would, I would think. There were some people.
Well, I'm talking about other people's blood spilled on you.
It's not like a boogeyman.
Oh, okay.
No.
Now you have the zombie virus. You're infected.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens.
Or was anyone afraid of biting their tongue and bleeding, or going to the dentist and bleeding in your mouth and swallowing?
Cut your finger.
Oh yeah, you're not allowed to. I mean, at least I was told you're not supposed to do that. I'm not sure that they wrote that down, but that was like a no.
So what happens if you just run out? What if you just don't have enough blood to stay? You just die?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
That's why we keep yapping about it.
So you're a Jehovah's Witness, you get shot, you bleeding out profusely, and they're saying you need a blood transfusion. You're finna die, you know that, right? I want to pray. God,
and people will adamantly say, I want to die, or yes, let my husband, child, that whoever it is that they're taking care of, let them die.
Wow, that sounds culty.
Yeah, thanks.
And
he's been here for
at the end of the day. At the end of the HLC brothers like, job well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just cheering it on. They're the cheerleaders at that point.
If you die and you refuse a blood transfusion, you'll probably be put on the website as a good example or something one day. So,
you're like a hero.
Very nice.
Question: Is there like a rogue Jehovah's Witness church somewhere?
No.
That operates. They say they Jehovah's Witness, but they operate outside.
Well, kind of, but there's like a whole backstory to that. They were first, and we separated off.
They was the new Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, I was the old.
We're the apostates.
Jehovah's they the Witnesses. Old ones. Y'all the new ones. Okay.
Yeah.
New light.
We were the new light.
I mean, it's possible there could be an isolated territory out in the country somewhere where the elders kind of do their own thing. But
I mean, basically,
probably not.
They would just annex. They'd get rid of that congregation and disband it. And there are some splinter groups. There's a current one that's kind of gaining popularity.
Oh, really? I hadn't realized. I'm going to have to check that out. So maybe I'm going to start my own.
Yeah.
Every time I just think of the Mormons, it feels the exact same thing. It's like a different brand.
We're cousins. We are cousins. We splintered from the same.
I mean, is it really all that surprising? There's how many Christian denominations out there, and we've splintered within a splinter within a splinter. And this is evolution. This is how things evolve, and then whichever one ends up getting more popular and surviving is the one that then continues on down. And same probably with the Bible, but anyway.
Not gonna lie to you, man. I'm glad Jehovah's Witness didn't take the full charge and become the main one. That or Mormon. I'm like, ooh, yeah. If I had to choose, I'll be a Baptist. Because they don't care what you do anyway.
I think you're supposed to be able to choose.
No, I'm just saying somebody put a gun to my head and say, hey, you better choose one of these three.
Don't take that choice away from Jesus in 1919 when he Said this is the people.
Do you think it's likely someone will put a gun to your head and say, which religion of these three, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, or Baptist?
I'll choose the Baptist. You never know, man.
I guess.
You know what's funny about your question about splinter groups, but kind of bringing it back to the topic of blood, is there are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, like they are disfellowshipped, they are apostates, they're active online, but they firmly believe that one of the things the current governing body has wrong is that they allowed blood fractions. Like they're really upset and outspoken that the governing body are apostate
Orthodox
because
Jehovah's
like the Bible says no blood, it should be no blood. The governing body are wrong for allowing blood fractions. Like that.
What?
It's crazy.
So
If
what's
they
the
see
blood?
this video, hello, but I
What's the
muted
blood
them on Twitter a
fractions
long time
again?
ago.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's confusing, isn't it?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. What are blood fractions again? So
She had a chart last week.
I do. I'm just trying to it's so
Yeah.
stupid. I'm trying to just phrase it right. Blood fractions. Hold on. Too slow. Blood fractions is this part, this part, this part. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what they've divvied it up as. So even though there's even more when you really
So what, you could take little pieces of this? Or something?
You could take all of them in pieces, but then if it was all put together.
You can take these pieces over here individually, itemized out, but you can't take this, these, or this.
But if you take all of that, that's essentially what you just did, right?
Yeah, you can't have all of it.
Yeah.
Whole blood, no.
But so
part blood,
ironic.
no.
So
But a splinter group of the blood is okay.
So you got to take pieces and leave out, like you said. Okay, you just leave out one little piece.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Can't have the cake, but you can have some of the cake batter.
Yes.
Boy, it's like an egg.
You can take this piece right here, and you can pull out, you can freeze it, and then do what's called cryoprecipitate, where they keep freezing it, and they do like this freeze thaw process that causes a very specific part to precipitate out of solution, and that's those clotting factors.
I'll just join the watchtower.
They can do that part.
I'll just join the watchtower.
This is too difficult for you.
That's
They
what
can do
happens.
that part.
That's how they get you. They start explaining the phrase. Yeah, I'll just join.
They start off with everlasting life. Wouldn't you like to see all of your dead loved ones again? Wouldn't you like to? Let's take advantage of all the things that every human on planet thinks about and misses, their loved ones, and then you sign up and you don't realize you can't have this, but you can only have this.
Yeah.
That was in the fine print of the contract you dunked yourself underwater for. So
Yeah,
anyway, this is what the last few videos were all about, was this stuff. So if you want to see more, go watch those.
Got
Don't
whole
forget to
blood.
like.
Sorry, Ron Pomo. Damn it. Did you want to say something? I cut you off.
Did I? I wanted to find at what point in the book that they use for studying with people is blood transfusions mentioned. Excuse me. So in lesson 39 out of 60, so kind of towards the 2/3 of the way through becoming a Jehovah's Witness, indoctrinated, they'll bring up the blood thing.
They tucked it in the middle where you least expected it.
They definitely don't lead with it.
Right. Yeah. Well, let me just go quickly over the rest of these myths. So I had this one, which was transfusions are the same as ingesting blood. And this is, I think, a really key point that they lean on in their reasoning for not accepting blood transfusions. But the truth is this is a very bizarre and foreign concept for anyone in the medical field when they think about blood and blood transfusions. To hear that, okay, the Bible says you can't eat it. Yeah, okay, but you're not eating it. We're replacing it into your body. Like, this isn't eating it. There was probably a completely different reason why it said don't eat blood in the Bible. And obviously, they didn't intend or anticipate blood transfusions being a thing, right? So anyway, it's not nutrition. There's various parts of things.
Tell that to a vampire, Edward Cullen.
Well, if you eat blood, if you consume it via mouth and put it into your stomach, then yes, you will get it is a nutritional source.
Don't knock it until you try it.
There's protein, right? There's protein in blood. There's the glucose that was from the animal probably still in the blood, right? Like there's lots of things in blood that if you ate it and digested it in your stomach tract could be considered nutrition. But just putting it in your bloodstream isn't nutrition. There is something that's called total parenteral nutrition, which I have down here at the bottom. And that is what a hospital would give you if you needed intravenous nutrition. And they're literally putting in amino acids, proteins, right? They're putting in lipids. They're putting in glucose and minerals and electrolytes, and they're replacing it. And they're trying to make it perfect so that they can infuse this very complicated thing, which is not meant to be in your blood like that. And then your body can take that up and digest it and use it. When you're not digesting it, you're taking it up into your cells and you're using it. We're bypassing your digestive tract is why we're doing this. Intravenous nutrition. But it's totally not the same as a blood transfusion. You give somebody blood transfusions, they're not going to be sustained. It's not a diet, right? You can't live off of blood transfusions as if you're eating. So it doesn't work that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Well,
Check out my refrigerator then.
The other thing I had over here was just something interesting. And it's kind of more in line with Ryan, what you were talking about, where don't get blood transfusions because there's a lot of errors that can happen. People make mistakes. People don't check the blood for infections sometimes. Or what if there's a new virus or a new infection like HIV that came out that nobody knew what it was at the time, and blood transfusions were a thing. And yeah, ended up being an HIV epidemic that happened because of that, right? Like that's how we learn. And then we make changes in the industry so we don't do that again if we can help it. And so, yeah, unfortunately, everything about what humans are doing in medicine is trial and error because we're not identical bodies, right? We don't all have the same metabolism. We don't all have exactly the same everything. So sometimes something works for some group of people, and then it doesn't work for another group of people because they metabolize it differently or they have a different blood type. How do you think we figured that out? Right? So yes, there have been instances where infusing blood is not a non-risky thing. You have to sign a waiver. You have to go over the risks and the benefits, but it absolutely saves people's lives when they need blood. So is it worth the risk? I don't know. I guess that's up for you to decide, but you need to understand what all the risks are and what's the difference between not doing something because somebody might make a mistake. They might give you the wrong blood type. That's a reason to then not accept blood products that could save your life. If that's the way you're going to go, then there's a lot of drugs you should be aware of. Chemo, for example. I don't know a single chemo that can't kill you, right? There's a lot of things that are out there that have way more risk to them, but we do them because they're life-saving and they're worth it for the risk.
But this is soul saving.
Prove it. I'm gonna need some evidence on that. So if you could start with what is a soul, that'd be great.
But that is the whole point, though, isn't it? Because most people, if they're in a medical emergency situation, they aren't going to be super worried about, is this blood possibly, does it have some kind of pathogen in it? You know, that's used as a method for fear for people who believe their eternal salvation depends on them not accepting a blood transfusion
Mhm.
as just another excuse to add on of why you shouldn't.
Right.
It's just extra.
And it's scary.
Make the cons outweigh the pros.
But I might get sick. Bleed out. End of scene.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, you choose that is your two choices, and that's not a legitimate. I don't know what I'm saying. Like, they don't give out blood transfusions for no reason these days.
Right. In fact, there's a lot of thresholds you have to meet before you even get a blood transfusion.
Yeah.
Like, you can be anemic, but it's not like, oh, your levels are a little low. Like, you have to be at a very specific, at least threshold of low levels and symptomatic to be able to get a blood transfusion, or obviously you're hemorrhaging, right?
Like they would give you iron supplements in that case.
Sorry, what?
They would give you iron supplements, I assume, before you went to that step, right?
So we talked a
they
little bit about
probably
that
take
last time.
all those
Sorry, go ahead.
steps.
What were you saying, Ryan?
Oh no, I was saying they probably would have you take all those steps, beforehand. Anything to boost your ability to produce more, whatever, red blood cells, whatever.
And we did kind of touch it briefly last time, where I talked about how long does it take if you were to take an injection of EPO-10, which is to stimulate your body's production of red blood cells. How long could it possibly take for even your level to come up one whole point? If at all, could be up to 8 weeks before they finally give up and say this obviously isn't working. So you could be trying to get your red blood cells to go up by using those medications and avoiding a blood transfusion. There's no guarantee your body will respond to that, and it could take weeks, and you probably don't have weeks if that's how badly you need it. So they don't always work in the time frame that it will benefit you. So that's a risk.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start selling blood on the low.
Black market blood.
Not only that, but think about this. EPO has a lot of risks to it, and there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people don't see. There are pharmacists that are making calculations and checking levels and driving a lot of this, because you can have death if things go the wrong way, right? If you overstimulate your body to make too many red blood cells, that is also a problem. So it's a very fine-tuned system that needs to be regulated. Also, not to mention, you just created a whole bunch all at once, and 120 days later, those will die, and then you'll have a tank in your anemia again. So there's a lot to think about. This isn't just a super simple thing. You go down this pathway, and it is a roller coaster of up and downs that could also equally be as dangerous as what is the chance of my blood transfusion having a virus in it, right? Like, what are the odds? Well, I don't know if those are equal odds, but you're going down an expensive pathway. It's way more expensive to go that way sometimes, and there's no guarantees it'll work. So,
and what Jehovah's Witness has really good health care and a bank account with extra funds in case they get sick.
That's right.
Just saying.
Yeah, so do you guys know what the Bible says about this? Or
it says don't eat it and keep not eating it. That's basically
it's all about, it's a dietary law. It's so ridiculous. They take a simple law that probably just would help you stay healthy back in the day and turn it into something completely different, into a medical thing. This has nothing to do with God, Lord Jesus. Those guys were not reliable for medical advice either. Please.
And there are examples in the Bible of, God's people ignoring the law on blood and not being killed for doing so.
Back in the day when God just smite thee if you didn't do it the right way.
Yeah.
But he didn't smite them.
No. I'm pretty sure it was King David and his men in a tense situation didn't bleed meat properly, and nothing
They were
Like,
starving in a war in an army.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lack of resources. They're starving.
right.
And they got
Right.
And they
slapped on the
ran
wrist
into
and
the
said,
temple and
"Don't do
ate
that."
sacred bread.
Yep. So
And Jesus said that the Sabbath was made for the people, not the people for the Sabbath, meaning that the law was meant to help the people. And if at any point that it was restricting them or would kill them, impede them, then it was necessary, damn it, to break the law.
yep.
I'd forgot I had done research on that story. It's right here.
Right
First
there.
Samuel, right there. I even wrote it. Don't eat blood in emergency.
Oh, is that the
Slap
one
on the
about
hand,
David?
reprimand. I did read it.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
Here's Nero.
So yeah, it's basically don't eat blood. Don't eat the blood of animals. Don't even do it in an emergency, but we'll kind of slap you on the wrist. You know, so,
I have an important question.
yes.
So, did you encounter witnesses that would only eat a steak when it was just so well done? It was a chewy.
Mhm.
Nothing, because like, oh, they can't have any blood in the steak.
I remember people, saying that, having their steak extra. I used to have mine extra.
Which
like,
is
well
just
done.
another evidence of ignorance. Because
It's not even. It's a protein, is it not? I forget what it's called.
You just want the blood oozing out of it. It's like food
Yeah,
dye. They stick on the meat so it doesn't go gray.
Yeah, like
Anyway.
ugh.
yeah,
That's not healthy meat if it looks all.
Yeah, we don't
gray.
even hunt and skin our own animals anymore. So all of this stuff is moot, right? Like we have no
some of us
we don't
do.
know what we're eating. It could be Soylent Green, and we'd be like, yum. This is good."
Right.
Like,
Right. I mean, come on. McDonald's food is kosher. Like, now, come on, please.
Please.
I do think it's kind of gross with these meat alternatives beyond meat and stuff, where they're purposefully adding elements to make it bloody.
you mean you don't like
Yeah.
fake meat to look like bloody fake
Yeah.
meat?
Tyler
I
got
like what I-
disconnected.
Oh, he'll be back.
He likes his steak rare. He had to get out.
Yeah.
He was angry.
He did say he was going to have to
Hearing
step out
us.
at one point and come back. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
excited.
right.
I'm excited for the next one. What do they say? Don't
yeah.
do.
Well, okay. So there's the original one. So like there's Genesis and like I got all this stuff from a different website. Hold on a second. Advocates for Jehovah's Witnesses Reform on Blood. AJWRB.org.
Yeah.
AJWRB.org. Okay.
That's been popping up in the news feed a little bit more lately. They've been telling stories on different websites. So.
Yeah. Well,
That's great.
I mean, the reason I liked it is just because of the layout of everything and the different topics. It was easy to find. I'll be honest. I don't read anybody's sob stories because I already can imagine what's happening. So I don't really need to. But I jumped to kind of more like the what do Jehovah's Witnesses believe Bible links because like I really didn't want to go look it up, and I really don't like going to jdub.org if I can help it. I don't know. Like I keep thinking that I'm gonna give them traffic. They're gonna think they're doing good or something.
That's okay. Inflate their ego. Let them think they're doing well, and really, it's just us.
Really,
doing
it's all
research.
us.
We're just doing apostate research.
I know the apostate material we all find is literally off their website. So
Keep coming to our website. You'll make our algorithm spread the word.
Right.
We got 500 hits last night.
So anyway, I kind of got this this Genesis section that talked about eating blood, eating animal flesh but not their blood. Blood is symbolic for life. And then he also said, as in the case of green vegetation, I do give it all to you. And so then that was the first thing that popped into my head. A little Snoop Dogg there. So that's what God wants you to do with the vegetation. Just keep in mind.
Welcome back.
Just following God's law. And then what over here, our lovely Apostle Paul, who is what Christianity is. And I never knew that. Like, it never occurred to me. I basically stopped reading the Bible after the main Gospels of Jesus. Once Jesus died, I was like, boring, and I'd shut the book and I didn't care. And I didn't realize how much, like, all of Jehovah's Witnesses and most of Christianity is just like that part. That's
And here's another doozy. Paul didn't write that, so
I know.
bum.
Did any of them write it? Like, I don't think Mark wrote Mark, and
multiple people
Oh
are
yeah, they were
attributed to Paul.
anonymous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah, Paul only wrote 7 of those
So
letters.
did Paul write Acts?
No,
Who wrote Acts? Do we know who wrote Acts?
no.
Okay.
Acts is supposed to be Luke Acts, but we don't know who Luke is. He claims to be the friend of Paul that happened to get mentioned. That's
So
it. Yeah.
friend of a friend who knew of
They just
this
used
guy
the name to
died.
get credibility. If that's what was done back then. I mean, it's typical. Like this is, but it's literature. It's not like actual history. It's entertainment of sorts
People
with a
inspired
sacred touch.
by maybe some recent events in their history, like people today writing about something that happened 100 years ago.
And not firsthand accounts, so they're passing down stories, told third hand. So.
Anyone who's written a book about Thomas Jefferson in the last 100 years did not know or actually see Thomas Jefferson. Just same kind of thing.
I like how Moses wrote Deuteronomy, and I died and was buried.
Right? Like, how did a guy who died write about his death? Like, wow, he had the foresight there.
Yeah. Anyways, enough about that. So what do the Jehovah's Witness leaders, governing body, the elders, I don't know, whatever's in between the governing body and the elders, that's all that really matters, I suppose. What do they tell their followers? What do they recommend their followers do or don't do? Who wants to start? I've started off here with what's called the Hospital Liaison Committee, which I have recently been quite introduced to this liaison committee. My mother-in-law had a very serious condition happen to her where the aorta of her heart, so that big giant first blood vessel that comes right off the top of your heart to pump blood out to the rest of your body, including your brain and everywhere else, started to tear away from her heart. Big deal. I'm surprised she lived through it, to be perfectly honest. It's amazing when people do. Honestly, it's amazing what human bodies can live through. And she needed, obviously, a very serious open heart surgery that was going to require blood. She'd already lost blood. She'd already had a lot of things going on, and time is ticking away, and we got to make a decision. And so immediately, she's been primed for so long to refuse that obviously it was a no contest. And so she called, obviously her son is, I'm married to her son, and he was informed that she was in the hospital. And before he could even get there, the elders were already there. The hospital liaison committee was on it. And she probably called them, right? This is what they do. It takes no time at all to have the chain of reaction of you tell one person I'm in the hospital, they tell everybody else, and the elders are immediately aware, the elders' wives, everybody knows you're in the hospital so quickly, which is not a bad thing, right? This is a community of people. Great. It's wonderful. So nothing wrong. But just to continue down the story, okay, so Tyler's not going to be here. Maybe
Tyler is here in spirit with us.
Means we can talk about him, and he can't say shit.
I'll keep the light on for you.
So, anyways, part of the story goes down as she started to decline, as one does when they refuse a procedure. It was very touch and go. She was not looking good. She did survive this whole event without getting a blood transfusion and without getting surgery, and she did live a full year after this. But it was rough, and she had a lot of ups and downs. And the hospital, the elder, and I know him, and it's so annoying because I know these people. They were in the congregation that I grew up in, and so it was added frustration because it was infuriating when we found out that he was talking to the surgeons as if they were her power of attorney, as if they were going to help make all the decisions. They were talking with the surgeon. They were trying to make plans to get her the surgery before they even talked to her son, who was her actual power of attorney, trying to get a hold, waiting for the doctor to call him. The doctor thinking they'd already talked to the people who needed to know.
Oh, my Lord Jesus. Stop it.
To be fair, his mother was not doing so well cognitively at this time prior to it. So she did technically have the blood doctrine paper that said no blood on it. And it is a power of attorney. So, hey, he's back. But she was confused, and her mom had just died, and so everybody in the family got like power of attorneys. We made sure of it. We didn't know what that blood card was, and neither did she, because she went and made her son her power of attorney for medical decision making. And so that when we finally got a hold of the surgeon was like, I didn't know you had the power of attorney. I didn't know you wanted to talk to me. I was talking to this guy over here.
Right.
So they're over there chumming it up, making plans, and here we are, the actual family who's waiting. And we were just on the sidelines. So that was a really super frustrating thing that happened for us. The hospital felt really bad because we went and talked to every doctor, and they were like, we're really sorry. We did not know that. They came in and they just said these things. And so they had paperwork, they didn't know. And so they just went with it. And at this point, she couldn't make any decisions on her own. She was delirious. She was all over the place. But she also didn't understand she was actually going to die. Like, not really. And so all she would do when she was in her delirious state is be like, don't give me blood. That was all she could say. Like, she just kept repeating it. She was terrified that people were just going to pump her full of blood the whole time. Nobody was doing it. He immediately respected her wishes from the beginning. Nobody was pushing a blood transfusion on her. But that then took surgery off the table. And so she was constantly confused when then the elder was coming in saying, we're working on getting you this bloodless surgery. You're going to still be able to get the surgery. And nobody was going to give her that surgery. Every doctor we were talking are like, she has a 5% chance of surviving this procedure without a blood transfusion. She has a 95% chance of dying on the table. No surgeon in their right mind is going to be like, yeah, that'll make my numbers look good. We'll do it. Right?
Mm-mm.
She didn't have time to go and get the blood levels up in order to get, the enough red blood cells that she could lose more blood in the surgery. She was already losing blood. She was already having blood clots.
Oh no! What the heck?
Boy,
the devil is doing a 1-2 swapperoo here.
Sound recorded.
One thing I wanted to say about the whole HLC thing too. What you guys were in a larger city where those probably were HLC, Jehovah's Witnesses, that came in that situation.
Probably.
This happens in smaller towns with just elders in the congregation. They will swoop in.
Are you saying there's
an
education that the elders get in order to be on the hospital liaison committee? Like, not just anyone.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's not like every congregation has a hospital liaison committee for their.
No.
Okay.
No, and HLC is tied to like a region or tied to a hospital.
Okay.
So it's not like in our small town. There's not an HLC.
But the elders will kind of do it anyway.
But the elders here will contact the HLC in Seattle when someone's going for
And
a
then
higher
they'll be
surgery
on the
from
phone
here.
with the
Yeah.
hospitals and do the
But even those local elders, if they want to know, and it spreads quick, and they'll show up at an emergency room in a small town hospital all
They
the
live
time.
for it.
Yeah,
I think
So-
they
I mean, it's
enjoy
gotta be
it.
exciting. Coming in there and making sure your First Amendment rights are being observed.
What's funny though, being fully in, and anytime I had medical things come up, or like with my wife, she had a surgery for a pregnancy loss. We did not tell local elders about it. We had to go to a different hospital. It's like, I just didn't want them there. Like, it's a stressful situation that I didn't feel like they were helping.
It is not helpful
Yeah,
to have them
so-
hovering around asking
And now
personal
now-
questions.
Yeah, now I especially know it's not helpful.
Even more
Well,
so.
I don't know what education they get at the hospital liaison committees, but after my mother-in-law did pass away, we had her phone because we had to continue to do her financial business. And FYI, if your loved ones have any finances on their phone, do not lose their phone. You need it. Oh my God. But anyway, we had her phone for that reason, and people kept texting her. Like, she was in all these group chats and stuff, so people kept texting, and so we kept getting all these Jehovah's Witnesses talking about service time popping up on her phone. And anyway, I couldn't help myself, and I decided to look at the conversation text thread between her and the one elder who was the hospital liaison committee, the one who caused so much drama and frustration.
I would have looked too.
And I read through it, and at one point he was telling her, "Oh, there's this new procedure. It's called a TAVR, and you can go in, and it's like a bloodless. It's like not open heart surgery. They can go in and they can do the heart valve repair, and they don't have to give you blood, and they don't have to do open heart surgery, and it's really great. You should ask your doctor. Ask all your doctors. See if you can come off hospice." She was on hospice at this time. "Get off hospice and go get that procedure done." One, she died 2-3 months later without that procedure. 2, that was not the right procedure. She did not have a heart valve function problem. Her aorta tore off her heart and was hanging there.
They're suggesting surgeries that will not even help her.
Wasn't even the correct procedure. A cardiologist would be like, "Why the fuck would I do that?" And they probably still wouldn't do it if she did need it.
They're getting stupid suggestions because they're coming from people who don't know what they're talking about. They have materials. They have binders or folders on a web page full of different PDFs. They are not trained medically,
And all it did was give her hope so much the whole time that she was on hospice for a year, and she did decline slowly. And then obviously rapidly near the end. That's usually how it happens. But she kept having hope. I read those texts. She was like, "Really? I'll ask my doctor right away." And she had all this hope that she was gonna somehow live. That she lived this long, so God must want her around. I don't know. And take it how you will, but reading those texts was sad. But also, my husband, her son, was there. The only one that was there for her as she was dying on hospice. He was there with her. Actually, so was I. We were there the moment she died. And she, an hour before I got there, he was talking to her, and she kind of came out of it, and she asked him a question, and she said, "Am I dying?" She didn't. It was the first moment that she realized she wasn't going to make it. And that's what she said. "I'm not going to make it, am I?" And then she just started crying. How heartbreaking. He was there by himself. There were no elders there. Nobody was there to obviously make her passing easy as she was going, right? Spiritually, nothing happened. And she was sad. She was scared and she was sad because she just was in denial the whole time. And it's because all she got was hope. Hope.
Yeah.
And the only thing that was going to work was the one thing they won't give her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do that to families over and over and over again. It has been told the stories of people in the hospital who lost a mom, after delivering babies, or some accident with a younger person, and it's like they're shocked that someone could, like, why didn't these blood alternatives? Why didn't that save them? And it's like a realization that they could actually die, and it's just so sad that people don't realize these things before committing to sacrificing their loved ones. So, yeah.
I'm with you in that. That's a hospice philosophy I'll stick with. Up with dope, down with hope. I'm just kidding. Just so everybody knows, I actually do work in hospice. So if I have a dark sense of humor, that's why.
That's where it comes from.
So anyway, that's my experience with the hospital liaison committee with somebody who needed a blood transfusion. I have had other interactions with the hospital liaison committee. I have a sister who's incredibly medically, I don't know if you call her fragile, but she was born with multiple birth defects. She was never expected to live past the age of 1. She has a trach. She has a G-tube that she gets fed through. She's probably had every procedure you can think of, right? And she's just continued to live. Only because my mother is so great at taking care of her. And also probably why I turned out as good as I did is because I grew up at Seattle Children's Hospital. That's where my mom took her and got most of her medical care. Luckily, she never needed a blood transfusion.
Right.
But I was always exposed to nurses, doctors, healthcare people. I wasn't scared of being in the hospitals. I associated it with people getting better, and so I didn't have, I think I just kind of grew up with a totally different perspective and experience that most of my peers, especially in the Jehovah's Witness community, did not have exposure to. And so I think I had like a bit more of a well-rounded, like my parents were always kind of like, well, obviously it means, not that extreme. Like if honey, hey, Wally, if you bite your tongue or if your dentist is doing dental work and you swallow a little blood, Jehovah's not going to destroy you, right? Like, but my spouse grew up with a family who very much was like, you better spit out every piece of blood. So
some people were exactly like that. They used to freak out when they bit their tongue. And if classmates would like suck a cut or something like that, I'd be like, oh, that's evil. That's bad.
But my sister,
suck out the poison. No.
Yeah. My sister
gotta die. Sorry.
She didn't need any blood transfusions, but the hospital liaison committee had come over several times, and I had to bite my tongue a lot to like not say something or kick them out because I didn't want to upset my mother. But thankfully, my mother was like, "No, we're good, thanks," And then they gone. They never they don't check in. My sister was in the ICU for a month, but she didn't need a blood transfusion. So,
the title gives the impression that they are there, and they like to claim that they are there to support Jehovah's Witness families through all things. Like they're just there for spiritual and moral support and practical help. They are the blood police. That is what their job is.
Mm-hmm.
Just push you over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
You can't change your mind.
They're there to make sure you have backup so that you don't compromise. And then if you do compromise, they're in a position to know about it, to deal with you later.
Yeah, they're the little devil on your shoulder, making sure that you don't betray their conscience, your conscience.
Yeah.
So there's something I just want to share with everybody, and you can go on YouTube. I can say YouTube here, right? Sorry.
Yeah. It's not censored here. It's not censored here like it is on TikTok. On TikTok, they'll censor you.
You can't say YouTube on TikTok?
I mean, you can.
Anytime I mention the channel here, I might get like a couple hundred views, and that's it.
Interesting.
I get like throttled.
Yeah, it's dumb. That's why everybody says stupid stuff on TikTok because it's arbitrary. Anyway, wrong rant.
Different tunnel.
Another time we can get there. But I was just going to say, I went to do some research on what Jehovah's Witnesses are teaching their followers or telling people to do, or suggesting or guiding, however you want to look at it. And I wanted to do it specifically because I did not want to go to jdub.org and I did not want to read any of their stuff anymore. But I wanted to do it from, like, if I was a person, like a medical professional specifically, who had no understanding of this, and I went to learn about it, what medical kind of perspectives could I get? And so I had one that popped up that was super interesting, and I clicked on it. And I'll just tell you what you can look for it. It's called, what do they call it? Jehovah's Witnesses and Bloodless Medicine, but it's the University of Maryland, and it's the actual university's videos. And so what it is it's probably, I was a little boring, I won't lie, but it's like a didactic lecture at the university, and they're talking on the topic of, well, the title of it was religious considerations in the care of Jehovah's Witnesses patients and bloodless medicine guidelines. And I guess there was like a patient who said he didn't want it, and then something happened, and then they went to his proxy and they were like, he's losing a lot of blood. I know he said he didn't want it, but are you sure you don't want to do that? And she said, go for it. And so they gave the blood, and then they lived, but then a couple months later they died of some complications from something else. And anyway, it's when you're really, really, really sick, you're lucky if you can live, to be honest, without comorbidities and long-term problems. But anyway, so they were using this as a teaching tool of, like, hey, maybe next time we'll just follow their wishes, because they sued us and this was bad and it went bad anyway. So we might as well just, like, if they say they don't want to do this, let's just not push it. Which I'm fine with, right? And then they had the next person come up was a cardiothoracic surgeon who specializes in bloodless medicine. And so he went through, these are all the options we can do, kind of from a surgeon perspective. It was really interesting. And if you don't really want to watch all of it, I would just kind of look for parts of it where the part I want to point out, if you don't want to watch or listen to all of what he's talking about, is that it's complicated. There are a lot of options. Some have some benefits, but they're all still just substitutes for blood if you needed blood. And while having a technique in surgery that is good to limit the blood loss is going to be good for everybody, right? Those are just going to be good outcomes for a surgery that you're going to do well in recovery if you don't have to have blood loss. So, like, that's obvious, no brainer. But, like, it was kind of like, or you could just use blood, or you could, have somebody save their blood for later, like donate your own blood specifically for you to have it put back in your own body, which I don't know why the Jehovah's Witnesses aren't like, yeah, it's your blood. Put it back in your body. But apparently that's a no-no. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to take your own blood out, save it for later, and then transfuse yourself with your own blood. That, I don't understand that. If somebody wants to give me an understanding on that, I'm listening. But anyways, after that guy talked, I felt bad because he's following this cardiothoracic surgeon giving a didactic lecture. There was a Jehovah's Witness local Maryland elder come up, and he gave his presentation on what Jehovah's Witnesses believe, and went through the whole thing. And oh my God, you guys, like, it was kind of painful to watch, but it was also really interesting. He said a lot of interesting things. And so I was just learning about it from that perspective. Like, if I was hearing this for the first time from this guy, yikes. And so one of the things, if you guys watch it, one of the things I want you to hear is he basically said, we can't always stop you from doing this, but we'd really appreciate it if you just maybe didn't do it. And he was referring to children needing blood transfusions. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's a weird way to say that. Like, he didn't say, you really need to respect the parents who've made this decision. He was just like, if you can just maybe not do it anyway, that'd be great. But we understand if you do it anyway. We can't
Yeah.
stop you. And I was kind of confused about that. And then after that video was over, YouTube automatically played another one. And it was from the Seattle Children's Hospital, the one that my sister went to as a kid. And it was a similar didactic lecture, only it was called the Adolescent Leukemia Patient Case Report. And it was like a 13-year-old kid who got a very abrupt case of leukemia. And honestly, blood transfusions are a big part of leukemia. It's a blood cancer, so it's necessary often. Plus, the treatment you need for leukemia also makes you kind of lose your red blood cells and white blood cells and stuff. So it's a big deal. It's a cancer of the blood. But that whole YouTube video was from a different perspective, and it was really well done. If you can, it's not that like technical. They do go into a little bit about leukemia, but it's really not. It's very low technicality, but it's from the perspective of the doctors and the people that interacted with this case at the hospital at Seattle Children's. And it was very interesting to see their emotions. Like they addressed it. They said, this was very emotional for us to be here and deal with this case and have this family refuse blood transfusion when it's all he needed and he would have lived. It was a curable cancer from their perspective. And so they admitted it was very hard for them to even talk about this case because they still have a lot of emotions about it. And then it kind of went down somebody else talked about like ethics and morality from the hospital perspective and how do they approach people who say that they don't want life-saving, blood for their child. And that was super interesting. But then at the end of it, they had a legal expert who was legally talking about the steps of children and basically suing to get a judge order to force a blood transfusion on children. And she was actually an ex-Jehovah's Witness. So as you can imagine, she had a lot of interesting perspective mixed with the legal perspective of it. And if you only watch that part of it, I would highly recommend it. I think you'll see a lot of familiar things that we've all heard and thought. But it was just really interesting to hear her perspective from a legal, profession now. So she's a lawyer. And so I don't know. I highly recommend you guys do it. It was Maryland, the University of Maryland Medical Center, and it was the Seattle Children's Hospital Bloodless Jehovah's Witness. Just type in those keywords and you'll find it. So sorry I rambled, but it was really fascinating, and I highly recommend you guys watch it if you can.
Get links in the description too. Probably. We can probably put those links in the description.
Oh yeah, I'm doing that right now.
I think I'm gonna write Bethel and be like, I can use my own blood if it doesn't leave my body, so I'll just kind of like leave it here, and then, whenever I need it, just kind of.
Well, that's the ridiculous thing about this convoluted, ridiculous doctrine is they are not consistent.
Yeah,
it feels arbitrary. Yes,
it is, because the whole thing is blood is supposed to be spilt on the ground, and so that's why they don't allow you to use your own blood stored in surgery, because it left your body. It's supposed to be poured out. Meanwhile, all of the little fractions that they now, or blood-derived medicines, are made from a ton of donated blood.
Mm-hmm.
That's all concentrated and processed and everything. So, but then they'll also tell medical professional Jehovah's Witnesses that they are in no way now allowed to administer blood transfusions. They used to allow them to administer blood transfusions at orders of a superior. Now they don't allow that at all. And they don't put that in writing. They transmit that instruction to Jehovah's Witnesses orally. So it's crazy. And I'm very tired. Sorry if I'm not making sense and slurring and everything. But
you having a stroke? No.
You're doing fine.
It's crazy, though. It's all crazy.
Well, so part of the bloodless surgery was that you can. Oh, thanks, Dan.
Dan, in appreciation, I will do a handstand for you.
I want to.
Where's your
This
hand?
guy want it right now. Yeah,
You
put
gotta
those hands up.
One-handed.
Oh, a one-handed one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Damien.
So one of the bloodless procedures that was described by this cardiothoracic surgeon in one of those videos I mentioned was that they will accept sort of like a cardio bypass, right? So you can infuse your blood through a machine. You can do dialysis, that's basically all that is
Yeah.
you pull your blood out and pump it through a machine and run it through a bunch of filters and infuse it back into your own body. That's not considered leaving your body. Like it's in a tube.
They got so giddy when that technology for Cell Saver came out. Like, oh, this is going to save so many Jehovah's Witnesses.
I remember that.
We're going to allow that to be a conscience matter.
Isn't that basically a vacuum?
Yeah. During surgery, they'll suck up lost blood and clean it and process it and put it back in you.
Yeah, that seems even worse to me somehow. Like it's already exposed to the air and
a medical dustbuster that
suck it up. Then we gotta run
Who
it.
are you gonna call?
Then we gotta heparinize it. So you gotta put an anticoagulant. It's for you, Tyler. You have to put an anticoagulant into the blood that you're sucking up in the surgical suite, so that it doesn't clot, because you can't infuse it back into their body if it's clotting. And guess what happens the moment blood is exposed, right? It starts, it's activated, it's still alive. It's your soul
doing what it naturally does.
But they have to put that medication into it, and they have to mix it with the other stuff, and then mix it with more fluids, and then they're pumping it back into you. And there's so many risks that are going to go with that. Like you could bleed just from having the heparin part still infused back into you in the middle of your surgery. Like we don't usually like to give people blood thinners while we're doing surgery. So like it's just risk. Everything that you're doing just to avoid this one thing that to me just doesn't logically seem like, why would Jehovah care? Why would he care if you can do dialysis, but you can't take your own blood out and put it back in later because it's technically touching the ground? Like
it's men's opinion. It's such rejection. It's unnecessary. Leave God out of the equation.
So an interesting part of that first video you sent me with the elder in Maryland giving his presentation too was he explicitly said all Jehovah's Witnesses cannot do this. This is what he basically said, this is what we allow people's conscience, to dictate.
Right.
That is exactly the opposite of what they're saying in court and in the media today. They are like, oh no, Jehovah's Witnesses make their own decisions on whether to accept blood transfusions or not. It's an entirely a conscience matter. And there is no consequences. We don't interfere with people's medical decisions. And it's like, they're lying about this because here's the other evidence of you guys presenting information from your HLCs where this is prohibited for all Jehovah's Witnesses. This is what we allow them to make a personal decision on. And the other thing I wanted to share before I get too tired to even speak is if you haven't done it, go to jw.org's terms of service. They have a section on medical information and how basically this is all just informational purposes only. We are not held liable. You should not take this as medical advice at all.
Do they have that disclaimer in
the
there?
fine print?
Yes. Do you want me to read it to you?
Sure. I believe you. I mean, you can read it, but...
if for the video, if you want me to read it, I'll try and read it. It says medical information. The content of this application, speaking of the website or the app, that contains any medical information or references is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice, nor is it intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The medical information does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in the medical information. The medical information is not designed, intended, or authorized for use in connection with any medical or life-saving, life-sustaining decisions, systems, procedures, or any other application or purpose. Always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health care provider with any questions you may have regarding medical condition or treatment. This application assumes no liability or responsibility for any errors or omissions in the content of any medical information. Reliance on any medical information is solely at your own risk.
Shut up. Use this information at your own risk. Stop it.
I think we should edit this later and then just speed you up so you're talking really fast like this, right at the end of like all the drug commercials. Like this is not intended to save your life.
That's a great idea. That's an excellent idea.
Somebody's got to do that. That's amazing. Please.
For spiritual advice, seek a qualified Bible scholar.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Can we get a preview of what's left on your slideshow? Like other pages?
You want to see the last page?
Oh, this is the last page? Oh.
Thank you, bitches.
I thought we had more. Now I just look like I'm trying to end this thing.
Way to go, Ron.
Just a friendly nurse.
So there's a couple. I mean, so we've identified a few questions that we have, right? Like why can we not donate our own blood for ourselves at a later date and time to be able to survive a surgical procedure that will need it? Why not that? Okay. But then there's some other things like ROGAM and other biomedical stuff. So I don't know where they stand on that. The last article I found on their website when I unwillingly went to it was from 1994, where they talked about this the rhesus part of your blood. So there's like a little molecule, a little thing hanging out on everybody's blood or not, right? So you're either negative or positive. It's a yes, no, on, off situation, including your blood type. So you have your blood type, and then you also have this extra little thing that's like,
oh yeah,
I'm either there or I'm not. Hey guys, and it's genetic, right? And so if the baby is positive and has that marker on their blood, but the mother who's pregnant with that baby is not have that can cause devastating problems. And essentially the blood of the mother, the baby and the mother's blood mix at any point in time, which pregnancies are risky, often very bloody. It happens, unfortunately. Not a great design if blood is so important. But anyway, just saying. But anyway, you essentially, the first baby you have will be fine. But if any other future babies that you have also have that marker, they won't make it to term. Your body will essentially reject them, and then it'll destroy.
Yeah, I had to get the shot just
so you get the shot that neutralizes the antibody, but you have to do it early enough. Like you have to do it with the first pregnancy or after the first pregnancy or as you give birth to that baby for it to work. You can't just like, I've had 3 miscarriages, I guess I should get the shot. Like it kind of isn't going to work at that point. You've already got the antibodies floating around. You're already primed to reject it. So where does that stand? Can you get other people's antibodies? They're derived from blood. So is it products that are derived from donated blood?
Yeah.
Is that
it just gets back into the inconsistency.
It's fair, yeah. And how arbitrary, like Wally said, it's they're just doing it, closing their eyes and pointing a finger because they're not of the medical profession. They are out of their, what is it? Scope of range of scope my ass, whatever. Scope of practice.
Yeah. I mean, and are the Jehovah's Witnesses going to do a 180? I honestly think that's where the governing body is going to try and guide it as best they can without admitting they were wrong, right? Because we've already seen them backtrack on things recently even, and they're never going to apologize because they're never going to admit they're wrong because they were right even when they were wrong.
Yep.
Okay. They were right even when they were wrong. So
It's
they're never wrong.
always the case.
So they can't just flip on this particular issue. The beards was peanuts, right? The beards was nothing compared to this. The hours, the time,
It's like testing the waters.
They're testing the waters, but also so many people have died because of this. So many lives have been ruined that if they just go, "Ha, just kidding," people
it will have real world consequences.
It will have a lot of consequences, and a lot of people are going to have a hard time with it. There'll be maybe even more fractions of Jehovah's Witnesses branching off from this. You know what I mean? So I do think they probably, as a governing body corporation who's managing all these people, it would be in their best interest to allow blood transfusions moving forward. And I do feel like that this is essentially what it's coming to, is they're just going to essentially try to phase it out like, well, it's your decision, whatever you want to do. Just, so I don't know. That's just my opinion on it.
I think they're going to have to change their stance.
I'm told that my son has a need for that special blood because of the procedures he's had done in the past. But I'm still not clear exactly how that works.
Like a blood type or something that's rare, or he has like a clotting or anemia disorder or something.
No,
you don't have to tell me.
No, I've said it before.
Tell me the diagnosis.
He had open heart surgery at 3.5 months.
Oh, wow!
For a congenital heart defect.
Okay.
So because of the procedures he had done, at some point, I guess he received a particular blood that causes him to need that special blood. I don't know. I'm confused. I tried asking my wife about it, but I still don't understand how it works.
Well, tell her to tell me, and I'll try and do my best and tell you.
Okay.
You can translate.
I just need to know the disorder, and I can probably look it up.
Yeah.
I speak medicalese, so I can help muddle my way through it.
But that just speaks to the nuance of problems that patients, members of the Jehovah's Witnesses, are facing, and you're going to have some dude who has no training whatsoever give advice and be just adamant that he's doing the right thing for you. And it's absolutely abhorrent. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys.
Was it like an anticoagulant or something, maybe?
Oh, maybe. So at what point in your journey or what was your process in destroying your no blood cards? Did you guys do anything?
No,
honestly, I don't.
You're not carrying one still, right?
One. Like, I know we were supposed to have them, and when I was like a teenager, I put it in my wallet. But yeah, I don't know. I think probably at some point I just got a different wallet and didn't put it in there, and then didn't think about it ever again, because why would I carry that with me?
Gotcha.
I don't think I made any particular ceremony out of it, but even after I left and I was in my early 20s, I think I was still afraid of it. I was still like, I'd think about it every once in a while and then be like, I don't know, should I? Maybe I would still decline a blood transfusion. But then the longer I was working in the hospital that I was in, I was like, maybe I could learn a little bit more. And the more I'd meet nurses and they'd be like, oh yeah, this is easy. You just do this. And, and I just start meeting people and talking. And because I also had that medical background as a kid being in a hospital, I don't know. I think I just eventually was like, maybe this is just a bunch of crap. I won't tell you about my traumatic time I tried to donate blood. That didn't work out very well. But anyway, I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it was a big deal. It was last summer. No, 2 summers ago. So it's like 2022, kind of waking up. We were camping on the beach, and we were having a bonfire, and I'm like, it's time to throw this thing away. And so I filmed it, throwing it into the fire. watching it go up. It takes a while for those things to catch on fire.
They're probably plastic or something.
They are, yeah. But then once they finally ignite, they go quick. So
I wish I
was
could remember what I
it-
did with mine.
It was an
Releasing
emotional
the
thing
demons.
for me and my wife. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, forget that last part, but yeah. No.
Well, I mean, I think obviously we would all be in denial if we didn't say that it hit us emotionally in certain ways at certain points.
Yeah.
You know, some things are harder than others. It just depends on what your stories are and what your experiences are and how strict your parents were and how stupid it all was and how much embarrassed you were. You know, like there's a lot of factors in it. I think we all just
For me, I think it was a like, this is the final part where, like, yeah, I'm gonna choose life, and I want that for my family too. You know, so
Yeah.
That's the best choice.
mhm.
And honestly, you know, as hard as it is to actually make the choice and stand over a campfire and make a symbolic decision right then and there,
Mhm.
as hard as that was, you've saved yourself so much anguish at a time that is critical and urgent, right? Because
Yeah.
if you were to have had an accident or your wife and you need to do a blood transfusion, what a terrible time to finally come to that conclusion of should I or shouldn't I? And then you're going to always wonder if you only did it because you couldn't live without your spouse, or, you know, like, did I make the right decision in the moment? Well, that's a terrible time to have to make those kinds of decisions. So that's why, you know, as an advanced directive promoter, I would promote people to think about those kinds of things. Like, what do you want to do? What are your limits? What do you think is worth it? So it's better to do it before there's a crisis, is all I'm saying.
Yep. It's the same JW logic, but in reverse. Sorry, Jonathan.
My wife is pointing out something in the comments there.
Oh, is just your wife in the comments?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Wendy.
She wants a PJ.
Miss Witness Awake, ex-Witness Awake. Yeah, I mentioned this in a different video where I was talking with Jake, but like I mentioned, the surgery that my son had to have, and even though I was out, obviously, just the idea of getting blood or giving it to my son just felt weird and foreign.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, for whatever reason, I'm like, so is there a bloodless version of this? And the doctor was basically like, no. No, there's not. And I'm like, okay. You know, I wasn't going to let him perish or, you know, or say, okay, we can't have the surgery, but it was a weird feeling that because it just kind of, it's ingrained in you that it's just kind of gives you the ick.
You're like, well, I gotta at least ask, right? If I can avoid dealing with this issue, great. And then you kind of feel like an idiot when you ask. They're like, no, you can't.
If I remember correctly, my wife's like, what? You're crazy.
She's thinking, I'm gonna have to kill him. No.
Was your wife ever a witness? I'm sorry, I forget.
No, never G-done.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yep. She's pretty cool.
Oh, that Pickles.
Oh, it's Miss Pickles.
It's Miss Pickles. She has her PJs on. It's hard for y'all to see. Oh, there you go. She got her PJs.
Sweater.
Yeah. Miss Pickles is getting used to wearing a little sweater for outside because it's, you know, snow and stuff. And then we've also started putting her PJs on because she's so cute. Oh, Mrs. Pickles. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, she is very good.
Well, friends, I don't want to end the stream, but I think I'm going to get off. So
I actually was just thinking that if there wasn't any other specific topics, because we did cover, I mean, I guess I didn't really go into like the new light, but I guess, I mean, what is it even? It doesn't make sense. So
is there new light we don't know about?
I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to the old light, I guess. So I was.
You got to relearn the old light so you could recognize if there's new light.
Yeah.
No
Someone
thanks.
will share it when it comes, and then we'll talk all about it.
Yeah. I rely on you guys to tell me.
Well, I've enjoyed this topic, and thanks everybody for letting me
too,
kind of
thank you.
nerd out and do my thing. And I enjoy talking about science-y and medical stuff.
It's fun to listen to someone who knows what they're talking about.
I don't really. I mean, okay, I'm gonna stop.
Simply.
I have like imposter syndrome galore and constantly think I'm an idiot. Thank you. I'll just say that. I try and stay within my scope of practice, but there's nothing wrong with learning more things, and so we all can learn more about everything. Just say that. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I don't know what we'll be doing next. I haven't decided. None of us have really. We kind of batted around a couple of ideas on the Discord channel, but I don't know. If you guys got thoughts or topics you want to talk about, we could certainly. Thanks for hanging out, Wally.
What I think I might do is put out a community post and see if we could get some input from the viewers.
Yeah, as if there's a particular topic.
Yeah, because I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys, and this might be also my biggest social event of the week. So
it really is for me. It's been enjoyable for me to have.
I'm a court low, so I'm gonna go top up.
And if you guys want to talk drugs or hospice, I'm also those are my two specialties. So nobody likes to talk about it but me. So but yeah, topic ideas would be great, and otherwise we'll just hang out. Maybe next time like Crimes Against Humanity and be terrible.
There you go. Yeah, a game that'd be funny. A live stream a game.
Maybe I should put together a some kind of like game show, like Wally said, and do like questions and just see how well you guys know your JW doctrine. Yeah, I didn't
like JW trivia games when I was a JW.
Oh, I hated that.
You're gonna like it and you're gonna play.
I didn't even know existed. I'm like, Hosea, what?
Those games were just existed to make the people that studied a lot look like smart nerds and everybody else look like an idiot.
We can manifest destiny, Wally, if we begin to put the good vibes out there, how they can change and
we'll
build
give them
it better.
the playbook. Yeah. Give them the ideas.
So that way they can lure more people back in. Nice.
Yeah.
Wally, before this, we were talking about the creation book, evolution or creation. And I was thinking the same thing. Like, if I could just edit the book and take out all the bad all the bad arguments they have and things that we debunked because it was so old. They wrote it in the 80s and all the data that they were like citing were from the 60s or older. So it's like, okay, we'll just assume they didn't know. And now we know. So we'll cross that off. So if I were to just like tear out the pages of that book, I've often wondered how short it would really be. So anyway.
Introduction.
That's why they now just have a website where they can always edit it. So
Yep. Great idea.
Yes. And they can even just swap out people if they need to.
Why not?
All right. Anyway.
At some point you're gonna go to jw.org and it's gonna be like updating.
Circle of death.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. You guys have a good night. Thanks for letting me hang out and talk like a drunk fool. So
yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great night, everybody.
Yeah, but drop it in the comments, you guys, if there's a specific topic or whatnot that you'd like us to go over. But we'll figure something out for next week. So don't you worry your pretty little heads off. And you'll see our faces. And also, too, if you'd maybe like to join the panel, we're always open to that. So put your face on here. It doesn't always have to just be me. I don't mind sitting one out. Or you join with us. Either way, that's also fine.
Then we can say it's the apostate capital of the world.
Little six screens for you. We can use our carnival voices, hi. Ex-Witness Awake. You can always give him a like and follow over on his channel as his name is. Of course, here, please give us a like. And Dr. Time Waster, you can find her on TikTok mostly.
That's pretty much it. I'm only here on this channel because if you go to mine, there's nothing there. So
One day.
it's too much
One
work.
day.
I would rather help contribute to something that's already here than try and reinvent the wheel. So just invite me to your channels and I'll yammer on. So
Same here. If anybody would like to add their voice or have a show idea, I've been thinking myself, I'd like to possibly start another show. Don't know about what, but I'm looking for people who are interested in using their voice to kind of not just discuss, JW topics, but things in that nature, in that kind of bubble as such to bring the eyes on it. Okay, I'm done.
I
Serious this time. I'm serious this time. We love you
And
guys. Thank you
scene.
for coming. Everybody in the chat, y'all are awesome. And Dan,
thank you.
thank you for supporting the channel.
Dan,
Yes.
you've been here,
That's-
our loyalist customer.
I'm gonna have to eventually send you a T-shirt.
He's the best cult member we have, Dan D. I will absolutely be sending out a prayer to the big ones up above, all the gods, just for you, Dan.
What size T-shirts do your cats wear?
Meow.
Kitty
Meow.
size.
Love you.
Okay,
Thanks,
bye.
everybody. Have a great night.
Bye.
Go home, everybody.